General David Petraeus is in Kabul Friday after the Senate confirmed him just last hour as the U.S. commander in Afghanistan. Democratic Senator Jack Reed, a senior member of the Armed Services Committee, joining me now. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us today. I wanted to ask you about a central question about the war in Afghanistan, the strategy, raised very strongly by Joe Scarborough today on Morning Joe with John Meacham. Let's watch.
We went in there talking about counterterrorism.
Yes.
We have now let the mission creep into counterinsurgency and the rebuilding of a nation that was never built in the first place.
That is precisely right.
So is the counterinsurgency strategy the right strategy? It's the strategy, of course, that General Petraeus authored and that General McChrystal was carrying out. Or should we really rethink the big picture? And perhaps that hearing didn't really get to the roots of that issue yesterday.
Well, General Petraeus is going to carry out the strategy of the president, a strategy that he worked on, was an integral part in developing, and it has several components. One component is a significant counterinsurgency operations to protect the population, but there is also an important counterterrorism operation. And that operation and those operations extend not only within Afghanistan, but also within Pakistan. President Obama has very forcefully deployed assets that went after and continually takes out al-Qaeda and other terrorist targets in Pakistan as well as Afghanistan. So I don't think you can separate the two. What the counterinsurgency strategy is designed to do is to get the Afghani army and security forces to the point where they can take the lead in the fight, just as we did in Iraq. And at that point, our emphasis will be almost entirely on counterterrorism, not counterinsurgency.
Although some would argue that that Afghanistan is not Iraq. Some are arguing that it's going to be a lot harder to get the Afghan forces whipped into shape and to maintain that kind of shape. The Iraqi army at least existed before it was disbanded, but it existed. There was roots of nationhood there.
No, Iraq is not Afghanistan, and Afghanistan is not Iraq. We can't make the simple sort of deduction that what might have worked, the tactical operations, will work in Afghanistan. We have to adjust, and General Petraeus will, our strategy and our approach. But the basic approach is building up the Afghani security forces so that they can provide stability, that we don't have to, and continually and indefinitely focusing on counterterrorism. And we have, under the president's leadership, conducted significant counterterrorism operations both within Afghanistan and within Pakistan. We have to keep the pressure on. And one of the fundamental questions, and I posed it to General Petraeus, is where are we best situated in order to pursue our objectives in the whole region with a presence in Afghanistan or outside? And his conclusion is that Afghanistan is a strategic presence for us that allows us to conduct operations throughout the region. This is ultimately about protecting the United States from the same terrorists who launched the attack on September 11th, and if given a free space and operational room in Afghanistan, we'll do it again.
Briefly, I want to show you Lindsey Graham's question to General Petraeus about the July timetable and the beginning of withdrawal, or however you want to frame that.
Somebody needs to get it straight without doubt what the hell we're going to do come July, because I think it determines whether or not someone in Afghanistan is going to stay in the fight.
So conditions-based, let's assume that the conditions don't warrant drawing down. Is that going to be politically possible for the president, for the Senate, for everyone else to keep? I mean, there's pressure in the House right now from Nita Lowey to start cutting the budget. Is that going to be sustainable if the conditions warrant and General Petraeus says we can't start drawing down July 2011?
Well, what we're doing right now on the ground is changing those conditions. This operation represents a significant increase in NATO forces and American forces, something that the Bush administration didn't do. We're building up now. In fact, when we get to next July, we'll have more troops on the ground than we've had in a long, long time in Afghanistan, if ever. And so we're operating for a much larger base of troops. My thought is that we will be effective. It'll be very difficult, and unfortunately, it will cost us casualties over the next several months by reshaping the situation on the ground so that we will be in a position to begin to shift the mission away from counterinsurgency, population protection, let the Afghanis do that, to counterterrorism, which is going to be a long-term presence. I think it's misleading to suggest that come July of next year, we're just taking up all of our equipment personnel and leaving. That's not the suggestion. The suggestion is we will make progress in order to change the mission and continue the counterterrorism operations.
Senator Jack Reed, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea.
And what political story will be making headlines in the next 24 hours? That's next on Andrea Mitchell Reports, only on MSNBC.